This is the Louie T Network. You are now officially in the lab room. It's that time again. It's that time again to go hard in the off season, cause we trying to win. We gon' go so hard, we don't take no days off. Hopefully one day it's all gonna pay off.
Hey, yo. Who else could it be? Me, your me, Louie T. Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2017 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, so you cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in X said team's draft. We will apply bonuses when necessary, get an aggregate score for those players, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for their team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control, as this is the You Picked format, or as I like to call it, the Up format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Couple of examples would be Texans next, Houston next, Texans next, Houston, Texans next, Houston, Texans next. Those are all the examples you need, because it's really simple. You don't even need to get too wordy. I would just go with the team nickname, Texans next, and have that be it. Get it up there as fast as you can, because they have been coming in so fast. I think this is the fastest I've ever seen these comments come in. As this thing continues to grow each and every single year, the comments come in faster and faster. So if you want your team to be next, you got to get in there, and you got to get in there fast. A little hint and a little word of advice: if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I can't help you. You need to make sure you have that done. And if you're not following me on Twitter, shame on you. At In the Lab Room, you need to follow me there. Turn on your notifications on Twitter. Turn on your notifications on YouTube, because that's going to give you the upper hand and advantage when it comes to these videos being uploaded. That being said, we're on to the next team in the series picked by you guys out there, and the Houston Texans is it. This is a team that has been defensively ready to make some noise for about the last 5 years or so, and the quarterback position has simply not been up to speed to where this team needs it to be to help them move along in the process. This is a team that should be a powerhouse in the AFC conference, but because of their terrible quarterback position over the last 5 years, this team has struggled come postseason time. They're good enough defensively to get them to the postseason. They're not good enough to advance once they get there. Last year was the culmination of bad quarterbacking at its worst, as Brock Osweiler continued to struggle at the quarterback position, so much so that they actually paid money to get rid of a guy that they signed to a 4-year, $72 million contract just a season ago. This time last year, we were talking about Brock Osweiler and the rebirth of this Texans team, and how they were going to have a chance to compete now that they had taken care of the quarterback position. We find ourselves having that same discussion this year, but in a different sense, because they have a young man that they have targeted and bullseyed as the quarterback of the future. And look, I'm not enamored with this Texans draft as a whole, and you'll find that out as we go on, but they took care of the absolute biggest hole on their roster, and that was the quarterback position. And look, we can sit here and talk about all the quarterbacks that weren't in this draft and how this wasn't a great quarterback draft, yada, yada, yada. They needed to do something, and they identified one guy in particular as the man that they felt like could get it done at the quarterback position. And that man was the first round selection, 12th overall pick out of Clemson. Quarterback Deshaun Watson was the selection for the Texans in the first round, as they trade up in the draft with the Cleveland Browns, swapped their first rounders, and gave up some other picks down the road. It, again, was a necessity This had to happen. I'm not going to break Deshaun Watson down here. I've already done that in the Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Deshaun Watson and some of the other guys I was able to get to prior to the draft taking place, go to the 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series in the playlist section on the Louie T Network. But before we move on, I will say this about Deshaun Watson. I think that he, of all the quarterbacks in this draft class, was the one guy that I felt like could come in and start day one for you. And not because he played in a pro-style offense, not because his skill set says that he's ready to play more so than the other quarterbacks, because I think Nathan Peterman, if you want to be honest, came from a pro-style set in Pittsburgh, played in a number of different offenses, is probably more ready to just step into an offense, call a play. He's not one of these guys that ran read option that can't call a play in a huddle, that's looking over at the sidelines like a Deshaun Watson, like a Mitchell Trubisky, and some of the other names in this draft. This quarterback here, Deshaun Watson, I feel is ready to start because he's a gamer. He's going to do whatever it takes to help his team win. The Texans don't need the second coming of Tom Brady or Peyton Manning to win a Super Bowl. They just need competent play consistently from the quarterback position. They got it in spurts from Brock Osweiler and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Billy Ho over the last few years. And hell, even guys like Case Keenum came in and played solid ball in stretches, but never consistently have they had the quarterback position not be a hindrance. And so if Deshaun Watson can just come in, and again, I don't know if they have a plan to bridge the gap. If they have a veteran that they like that's going to start the season off and then give Deshaun Watson time. I don't know if he's going to be able to sit out a whole entire year and then play. All I know is if they ask him to start day one, if they call his number and say, Deshaun, we need you to play week one, he'll be ready. He'll make his fair share of plays. Yeah, he'll make some mistakes. All quarterbacks do, especially rookie ones. But I'll tell you this guy is the ultimate gamer. When the lights are their brightest, when the stage is its biggest, Deshaun Watson plays his best football. Just go ask the Alabama Crimson Tide. So this is a guy that I feel confident is going to find a way to get it done if you need him to play right away. And so I love this selection. I love the fact that you identified a guy and did everything you had to do to go and get your guy. You know my mantra, you know my motto, get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. And in the first round, 12th overall, Clemson quarterback Deshaun Watson is hit up. He's hit deep. You can put him on the board. Yes. It's a home run for the Houston Texans in the first round as they get their quarterback of the future in Deshaun Watson, a guy that I feel like is going to be exactly what the doctor ordered for a team struggling at the quarterback position. They need a leader in Houston on the offensive side of the football. Deshaun Watson, a natural born leader, and I think this is exactly what the Texans needed. Y'all give it up for Mr. Deshaun Watson. As we move on to the second round, 57th pick overall, Vanderbilt linebacker Zach Cunningham is the selection. Length and athleticism are his first pros. This is a guy who ran a 4.67 at the combine, which is a tremendous time for an inside linebacker. I don't know if the Texans have that planned for him at the next level. This is a run and chase weak side linebacker if I've ever seen one. As long as you can keep him clean, if the guys up front can command double teams and keep the offensive lineman off of this guy, he's going to run free and make tackles. That's the name of his game. But he is long and he is athletic, 35-inch vert, 10.4 broad, 34-inch arms is what this guy calls. And really, when you look at him, he's all arms and legs. All right, and because he's such a long defender, that leads us to our next two pros. Closing burst and sideline to sideline range. And like, he's one of those guys that, again, unblocked, he's a menace. All right, and even when there's an offensive lineman there ready to block him, he's so adept at slipping those blocks and getting around those guys because he's so quick. He eats up so much space. You throw a little swing pass out to the flats to your running back out of the backfield, and it looks like a gain of 7 on first down. And here comes Zach Cunningham out of nowhere, cutting that thing in half, and it's only a 3-yard pickup, or it's a 2-yard gain. And you want to know, where the hell did this guy come from? He's got that kind of closing burst. He's got that kind of sideline to sideline range. It's just fun to watch a guy just fly around, and I've actually seen him grab guys by the nameplate and swing around. He's running so fast to him that he reaches out those, and you've heard me say go-go gadget arms before, but he literally has go-go gadget arms. And I saw him extend one of those arms out as he's flying by, grab a guy, helicopter his way around, and sling the guy on the ground for a no gain. So this is what he brings to the table, just sideline to sideline range. He has tremendous closing bursts. He moves so well, and he eats up so much grass with those long legs and long strides on the football field. He's a magnet tackling radius. This is the kind of radius that he has. His tackling radius is ridiculous. You've heard me say this before when talking about players and how they're able to just somehow attract the ball carrier. With him, it just seems like he's out of distance. He's too far out of reach to make a tackle, and somehow he latches on to a ball carrier, pulls himself to them, and then pulls that ball carrier down to the ground again. The amount of ground he's able to cover up with his length is just mind-boggling. He's such a long defender, literally. He's long arms, long legs. He's just a long defender. Attacks the line of scrimmage aggressively, 33 tackles for losses over the last 2 seasons. This is a guy that just finds a way to get to the line of scrimmage aggressively, using his instincts. He sniffs out run very quickly and shoots the gap, gets into the backfield, makes plays, whether it's inside runs, some power, or it's outside runs. And those are the ones he excels at. When teams try to go wide, he's the type of guy that will sniff out a sweep or a toss or anything wide to the outside, off tackle. Those are right in his wheelhouse because he's able to run free and attack the line of scrimmage, and he does it as well as any linebacker coming into the NFL out of the college ranks. 16.5 tackles for loss over the past 2 seasons respectively. So each of the last 2 seasons, I should say. So this is a guy that's coming downhill aggressively, attacking the line of scrimmage and getting guys on the ground. The most notable stop that I saw watching him on tape, they're playing Georgia late in the game, about a minute left in the game. Georgia needs this first down. It's 4th and 1 to extend the game. Vanderbilt up by 1. Georgia on the move. They pick up this first down. Most likely they're going to get in the field goal range, win the game. And Zach Cunningham shoots the gap, gets into the backfield on 4th and 1, tackles the running back for no gain on 4th and 1, preserving the victory for Vandy on the road in Georgia. That's the type of player he is. That's how he attacks aggressively downhill around the line of scrimmage. He's a tackling machine. Over 100 tackles the past 2 seasons, each of the past 2 seasons, over 100 tackles, led the SEC in tackles this past year. And this is with him missing about an additional 15 to 20 tackles. So we're talking about a guy that led the SEC in tackles with over 130 tackles on the season. Could have easily had 150, could have easily been north of 155 tackles on the season because he was so aggressive, and he is a guy that is around the football that often. Coverage ability, I think he's solid dropping into coverage, does a really good job of getting depth. I think he's at his best in zone coverage. I think he can do a little something in man-to-man as well, although I'm not as comfortable as some are with him in man-to-man coverage. He does have some coverage ability as well. And finally, special teams value. He's one of those guys that's going to be one of the first players down on punt teams. I saw him make a tackle. I also saw him recover a fumble on punt. So this is a guy that is very active on special teams, in addition to being very active on the defensive side of the football. As we move on to his cons, wiry frame. This is a guy that is very angularly built. Long arms, long legs. Like I said, to me, he's all arms, all legs. At 234 pounds, standing 6'3", this is a big guy, but not a lot of meat on his bones. And I don't think this is one of those guys that, as you get him at the next level and you get him into your weight training and nutrition program, that he's going to put on 10 pounds and end up being 243 or 245 pounds. I think his frame is where it is. I think that's the type of body type that he has. I don't see him putting on a ton of mass So I don't think this is a guy that you can really ask to be what more than he already is. And so if you're the Texans, you got to keep him clean. If this guy's going to play for you and be an effective football, you got to keep him clean. But the Texans like them big and long, okay? The Texans like their linebackers to be a little bit taller. Remember, just a couple of years ago, they selected Benardrick McKinney right around this same point in the draft, a big 6'4" linebacker out of Mississippi State. Now, the difference between the two linebackers is Benardrick McKinney was a grown man coming into the league. He was already about 250 pounds coming into the National Football League, maybe even north of 255, whereas Zach Cunningham is literally a 235-pound linebacker, even though he's 6'3". So Texans like their linebackers to be a little bit taller. They would have loved it for Zach Cunningham to be a little bit thicker in his frame, but that's just not the case. He tackles high, often resulting in missed tackles. We talked about the missed tackles a little bit earlier, and a lot of those missed tackles comes from him coming downhill so aggressively and then choosing and opting to go up high instead of coming to the waist and wrapping up. He loves to reach up around the neck area, around the neck plate, around the shoulder pad area, and try to grab a guy and sling him down. Sometimes it's effective, others it is not. You will see this guy miss quite a few tackles on tape. Now, again, he's very disruptive. Even if he doesn't make the tackle, oftentimes he's slowing up ball carriers, allowing his teammates to come and clean up the mess. However, he will miss a tackle or two just being a little bit out of control and not breaking down, and more importantly, not wrapping up around the waist or even the legs, but opting to instead go high. And finally, I think he needs to key quarterback's eyes better when he's in zone coverage. He's a guy that will get depth on his drops, but he doesn't see where the quarterback is going with the football. He doesn't really read guys coming into his zone and zone match as well as I think he should. There are times where guys are sneaking right in behind him or right beside him, and if he's paying attention, he'd be able to make a play on the football. Instead, the ball gets completed, and then he ends up getting in on the tackle. And I think he could be a little bit better at just dropping into zone and then eyeballing the quarterback to see where he's trying to go with the football, and then picking up guys as they come through his zone. I've seen him bump guys off their routes a little bit to just throw off the timing, but I'm talking about running with a guy that comes through your zone and matching him as he runs into someone else's zone. I'd love to see him key quarterback's eyes a little bit better and also zone match a little bit better in zone coverage. But this is a really good pickup for the Texans. They need to get younger. Okay, Brian Cushing not getting any younger at the inside linebacker position. And again, I don't know how they envision using Zach Cunningham. Are they going to use him inside like he was used at Vandy? Are they going to use him as a weak side linebacker in their defensive scheme? I don't know. Bottom line is this guy can run and tackle. And in the second round, 57th overall selection, Vandy linebacker Zach Cunningham for me is a triple. Really like this selection. He gets after ball carriers on a consistent basis. You know what you're getting, a big ball of energy going after the football, snap in and snap out. And also you're going to get special teams value in the process. You move on to the next selection for the Texans in this draft, third round, 89th pick overall. Texas running back Deonta Foreman is the selection. This is another guy that I already broke down in the Draft Prospects 101 series. So again, if you're looking for a thorough breakdown, you'll have to go there in the playlist section on the Louie T Network. But again, another guy that I think is going to come in and really help this Texans football team. I told you last year, watching this Texans team, especially late in the season and into the postseason, I thought that they wore down Lamar Miller his first year in Houston. He wasn't used to getting the football as much as he did in Houston because of how bad Brock Osweiler and the passing offense was. They had to rely heavily on the rushing game. He was broken down by the end of the season. Again, a guy that was used to splitting time and not getting as many touches in Miami. You bring him over and make him your bell cow in Houston, and he really wore the effects of getting the football so much in that Texans offense. Had some ankle and knee issues towards the end of the season. You could tell he was worn down. You get a guy like Deonta Foreman who's going to come in, a bigger back that can take some of that load off of the plate of your running back position and Lamar Miller in particular, I think this is really going to help strengthen that backfield. You got a ton of guys back there that can tote the rock, and we saw that last year. Even some guys that I think need to touch it a little bit more, like Tyler Ervin. And I thought he struggled a little bit from time to time, especially on punts, fumbling punts and things of that nature. But he's another guy that I think in year 2 will be a little bit more comfortable what they're asking him to do. I think this is a really balanced backfield, and D'Onta Foreman is going to make it even more formidable and balanced. He's a big guy that can run really, really fast. And I think this is exactly what the Texans needed to do. And love this selection for them in the 3rd round, 89th overall selection. Texas running back D'Onta Foreman for me is a triple. This is a really good pickup for a Texas team that at times relies very heavily. And with the young quarterback, especially if you're going to play Deshaun Watson, you're going to rely, once again, heavily on the run game. You're going to need to lean on it at times to help you win some ball games. D'Onta Foreman can come in and help you with that area that you struggled in late in the season, I thought, last year, and even into the playoffs to a certain degree. You go to the 4th round, 130th overall pick, Bucknell offensive lineman Julian Davenport is the selection. For me, this is where the draft kind of takes a sharp turn, and not for the best for the Texans. This is where you start seeing some developmental guys, and you start seeing some guys where you got a bunch of questions and not enough answers yet. And this is why the draft kind of goes a little south for me with this Texans team. And it's here. And not because this is a bad player, but because you're projecting him for down the road for a team that I feel like you need to try to win now. You need to be getting guys that can help you right now. I don't see Julian Davenport doing that right now. I think he's a guy that in 2 years, when Dwayne isn't able to do it at left tackle anymore, then you slide a guy like Julian Davenport in there if he develops the way that you want him to. But right now, Dwayne Brown's the left tackle, and you feel good about your right tackle position. So I don't know if Julian Davenport can help you right now. But let's jump into his breakdown, though. Tremendous size and length. I mean, when I say tremendous size and length, we're talking 6'7", 318. Okay, that is tremendous size. Then the tremendous length. 36-inch arms. Yikes. Okay, this guy is huge for the left tackle position. And then that's left tackle size if I've ever seen it. So if you're thinking about, well, just move him to right tackle, they're grooming this kid to be their left tackle of the future, I think. And generally, you don't take left tackles in the 4th round. But if this guy develops the way that they think he can, I could easily see them thinking that he could be the answer at left tackle. Physically imposing guy. That's the next pro. 6'7", 318. I don't have to explain that to you. He was a man amongst boys at Bucknell. Literally, when you're playing against VMI and Colgate, okay, you're huge and they're not. All right, I watched him against VMI dominating a guy that looked like he was about 6'1". All right, I mean, he was a hulking, towering figure over that guy, and he was just using sheer length to just keep him at bay. Speaking of which, can win most reps with just length, just sheer length. Now, again, that's going to have to change at the pro level. Yeah, his length is going to be a huge asset, probably the biggest one he'll have in his arsenal. However, he can't just play keep away by just chucking a 6'4", 270-pound defensive end or 6'3", 255-pound edge rusher, just chucking him away like a little brother. That's not going to happen at the next level. He's going to actually have to have technique. He's going to have to be sound. He's going to have to actually have a lethal punch and actually extend those arms and be a little bit more technically sound than he was at Bucknell, where he just won because he was just bigger than everyone else. Sustains his block. He's one of those guys that once he gets his hands on you, does a really good job of holding on to that block, and not literally holding guys, but actually hands up under the chest, sustaining his block and driving them out of the play. Now, again, much easier when you're at Bucknell and you're playing against the likes of, like I said before, Bucknell, VMI and teams of that ilk. It's going to be a lot differently when you're going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts and things of that nature. So it will change significantly at the next level, but he dominated subpar competition. That's the next pro. To get drafted and stand out at Bucknell, you need to dominate the competition. And yeah, it does help to be 6'7", 318. That does help you stand out on tape. However, you could be 6'7", 318, not dominate, and they won't even take a look at you. So he did dominate. He was one of the best players in the Patriot League. And so he continued to get better as his collegiate career progressed. He was durable, 44 straight starts at Bucknell. Again, one of the best players in FCS. So he was a guy that consistently got it done for his team. As we go to his cons, his feet are heavy and he doesn't move them enough. This is why he needs work. This isn't something that I think is a death sentence for him. I just think he got lazy. He developed some bad habits because he was able to do so. I don't think he's not capable of moving his feet. I don't think his feet are like anchors and he can't pick them up. And he's not able to move athletically because I think he can move well enough to get the job done. He doesn't have to move with the most style and grace, all right, to get the job done. When you're 6'7" with 36-inch arms, you just need to move adequately. Your length will take care of the rest. So I just want to see him move. He relied too heavily on his length to me at Bucknell because he could. And now he needs to be coached up properly on what he needs to do to not only allow that length to be a strength, but to allow that length to work for him and not be the only thing that works for him. All right, I need that to work in conjunction with his movement skills. I don't think he did that on a consistent enough basis while at Bucknell. There's no nasty streak for me. I'm not saying he's a nice guy or anything like that, but I didn't see the nasty in him. And maybe he's just a nice guy. It's possible. But I like my offense, and you don't have to have a nasty streak to be a good offensive lineman. That's not a prerequisite of the position. It helps because it's a nasty, physical, vicious, violent game, especially in the trenches. Down in, down out, snap in, snap out. It's a battle and a war of attrition down there. And you got to be more aggressive than the guy in front of you. And I just didn't see that aggressive, nasty, mean streak in him. Doesn't mean it's not there. Doesn't mean it's necessary. You just like to see those things. And then finally, level of competition. I'm not going to harp on it. I've already kind of talked about it too much as it is. But yes, again, when you're going up against VMI and you're going up against Colgate, and those are some big games on your schedule, it tells you all you need to know about the kind of guys he was playing up against. And so how many guys out of Colgate, been running around in the National Football League? Not many. So he's a guy that is going to definitely have to step his game up. Level of competition definitely going to go way up for a guy like Julian Davenport. But in the fourth round, 130th overall selection, Bucknell offensive lineman Julian Davenport for me is a double. There is some potential here. There is a lot to work with. But again, I think he's a developmental guy. I don't know exactly what you're going to get out of him. I don't know what position you're going to have him play, left or right tackle. He's definitely a tackle. And does he ever adjust to the level of competition, the speed of the game, the power, the ferocity? All of those things are within question. And again, we don't have answers. Developmental guy in the fourth round, I'd like to take a flyer on a guy like this in the fifth or later, not in the fourth round, where I still think you need to be getting impact players on your football team that can help you right away, especially for a Texans team that's in win now mode. You go to the next fourth round pick, 142nd pick overall. Clemson defensive lineman Carlos Watkins is the selection. 6'3", 309 pounds is where we start with him and his size. A really good size for the position. Solid movement skills. When you watch him on tape, he's moving around really well, especially when he's fresh. We will come back to that because that is a big part of Carlos Watkins and his game. But he moves very well, especially on twists and stunts. He gets a lot of his pressures off of twists and stunts where he's able to loop around and beat the center or guard or both and find his way to the quarterback. So really solid movement skills for Carlos Watkins. Aggressive hands and punch. You see this guy really shocking all the offensive linemen in front of him with an initial punch. His hands are very heavy and it allows him to stay engaged with the play, whether he needs to disengage or just try to back that offensive lineman up into the lap of the quarterback. So very aggressive hands and punch for Carlos Watkins. Also able to split double teams. I saw him on a number of occasions get in the backfield by splitting double teams, especially when you're talking about pass rush. You don't often see that happen, but he was really adept at turning sideways, getting skinny. For a guy 309 pounds, you don't often hear skinny and 309 pounds in the same sentence, but he did a really good job of using a swim move and getting skinny to split double teams and find his way to the quarterback. He's a very active pass rusher. That's the next pro. 10.5 sacks for the Clemson Tigers last year. Was one of their leaders in bagging quarterbacks a season ago. So we're talking about a defensive tackle among the leaders on that Clemson roster getting to the quarterback. That's impressive from the defensive tackle position. 10.5 sacks. Anytime you hit double digits as a defensive tackle, you're doing something. We'll talk about how those sacks were acquired a little bit later on, but nonetheless, at 10.5 is a ton of pressure from the interior defensive line position. And versatility is the final pro. This is a guy that can play the nose for you, even though I think he's better served as a 3-tech or possibly even a 5-tech in a Texans defense that usually features a 3-4 front. But nonetheless, you're going to be in a ton of nickel. This is a guy that can play the 3-tech on passing situations. This is what you brought him here for. When you're with 4 down linemen and you want to mix things up, this is a guy that can get to the quarterback, similar to how Antonio Smith was for you once upon a time, as a guy that was bigger but could still rush the quarterback. Awareness. This is a guy that when he's not getting to the quarterback, sees that he's not getting to the quarterback, will get his hands up into the passing lane. Has a pick 6 on his resume in 2015, was able to leap up, snag one, and take it to the crib. Now, I'm not saying he ran 40 yards. It was only 15, but doesn't matter. He still is one of those guys that will deflect a pass on 3rd and 8, knows he's not getting there, puts his hands up, and will deflect the football. You go to his cons. He gets fatigued, and his motor runs hot and cold from time to time. When he's fresh, he's a menace, and he's tough to deal with. But when he's fatigued, when he's tired, when there's a hint of him being a little tired, you get a guy that just seems like he's not giving a maximum effort. You'll get a guy that's standing around, that's hand fighting with offensive linemen and just kind of standing in place and just taking up space on the football field. So you don't know what you're going to get from Carlos Watkins. When he's not fresh, you have to do a good job of keeping this guy fresh. When the motor's hot, he's a problem. When the motor's cold, he is ineffective and not a player that's going to do anything to provide you with any type of value on a snap-to-snap basis. So you got to try to keep that motor running hot when you're talking about Carlos Watkins and looking for pass rush production out of him. He's a secondary pass rusher. And what I mean by that is he doesn't win on an initial rush. He doesn't win off the first rush. He's not winning because he goes up and uses a spin move to beat the guard and split the center and get in the backfield. He's not winning because he just straight bull rushes and just straight up bulldozes the guard of the center and gets to the quarterback. He's not winning with a straight rip and swim right off the snap and into the backfield. He's a guy that's going to push and bull rush, and then the coverage is holding up. Then he swims off of him, and then the quarterback's rolling out, and he cleans up a mess. All right, he's the guy that the first pass rusher off the edge comes up the field, quarterback steps up, and Carlos Watkins engulfs him because he stepped up into a sack. He's the type of guy that on a twist and stunt comes looping around, and he's able to bounce off of the guard, cut inside the center, and get to the quarterback. He's not a guy that's winning off of his own initial rush. You either have to manufacture a pass rush for him, or the coverage back in the back half has to hold up long enough for him to use a second or a third effort to get to the quarterback. And finally, he can't stand up to double teams very well. In the Alabama game, I thought they did a really good job of just wiping him clean and opening up holes for both Scarborough and company as they were able to run the football effectively in that game. He's a guy that can stand up to double teams, but not very often. If you've got 2 powerful offensive linemen who link up on him, you can wash him out of the play. He's not able to stand his ground in those types of situations, but he's a solid guy. I think a situational pass rusher, a guy that can hold his own one-on-one in the run game, but he's not as effective when he's tired. And in the 4th round, 142nd pick overall, Clemson defensive lineman Carlos Watkins for me is another double. As we move on to the 5th round, 169th overall pick, Oregon State defensive back Tristan Decoud is the selection. This is a big guy, 6'2", 206, and we start there. Length and size are his first 2 pros. 33-inch arms to go along with that 6'2" frame. He played a ton of corner at Oregon State, but a lot of people think he's going to have to make the transition to safety at the next level. I don't know what the Texans are going to do with him. We'll see, but I think he moves well in space. That's the next pro. I watched him go up against John Ross. It was not a good day for him, but I thought he actually did a solid job of keeping up with John Ross. He just didn't have the necessary catch-up speed to keep up with that blazing 4.22 speed that we saw John Ross feature at the combine. But I think he does move his feet very well for a bigger guy. He looks to be aggressive in the run game. He's a guy that will come up and tackle, and I think that's why a lot of people feel comfortable making him into a safety and transitioning him from corner to safety, because he's got the size and he's also a guy that is willing to stick his nose in the fray in the run game. He will challenge receivers. I saw him come up. He challenged John Ross, which was a mistake, in his face, and John Ross ran right by him off the line of scrimmage. But he will come up. I watched him against Washington State. I watched him in a number of games where he came up and he challenged guys and he got in their face and he pressed them at the line of scrimmage and he stayed in their hip pocket. And so he will come up to the line of scrimmage. He will be physical. He will challenge guys. He's not afraid. And he's got some versatility. I think if he goes to safety, he's a guy that you definitely feel comfortable playing him in the slot. He's a guy that I think you can use as a single half free safety. I don't know how comfortable you would be with him, because again, that's not what he has been trained to do. He's a corner by trade, but I think he's a guy that could offer you some versatility to play corner and safety if need be. And he's got bloodlines. His cousin, you heard the name Decoud before. It's a very uncommon name. It's rare that you hear someone with their last name Decoud, so you start thinking they got to be related. They are. Thomas Decoud, Falcons safety, was his cousin or is his cousin. So there are bloodlines there. So that always helps as we move on to his cons. Lacks top end speed. He's a 4.55 40 guy. It's not the slowest in the world, but it's not enough in this day and age in the league to be able to keep up with these fast receivers. You can't put him one-on-one with T.Y. Hilton and ask him to hold his own, okay? T.Y. is going to blow right by him, and he's going to be doing this in the end zone. And so you don't want any part of that. And that's why a lot of people think his position at the next level is going to be safety. Lacks closing and makeup speed. He lacks a closing burst and makeup speed. So this is a guy that I watched against John Ross, and this was the most damning tape for me, because I thought he did a really good job on a crosser. They did a flea flicker, the Washington Huskies. And John Ross kind of goes inside to sell the run like he's about to block. And then he takes off up the field at an angle like he's running a post across the field. And John Ross wasn't running full speed. Decoud was kind of right behind him, right where he needed to be to try to make a play on the ball. And all of a sudden, at the very last second, Ross sees the football and turns on the accelerators. And Decoud could not keep up with him to go and contest the football. All he could do was just run and tackle him for about a 55-yard gain. The possession before, John Ross ran right by him on a go route for 45 yards. So he just lacks that ability to make up speed. And on that 45-yarder, he had the audacity to try to jam John Ross at the line of scrimmage, and Ross broke him off and ran right by him. So he doesn't have the makeup speed to close in. And again, I know that's an extreme case. It's John Ross, but still, he doesn't have that makeup speed that you're looking for, and he doesn't have the ability to close in. I saw him as a matter of fact, on the 45-yarder to John Ross. He was playing off. I want to say it was against John Ross. This might have been Washington State, but he was playing off, and he about 10 yards, and the receiver ran a dig route. And he took the behind angle. I want to say this was John Ross, and that was the first 45-yarder. Was he was playing off. Ross runs a dig route. It was a little bit of a combination rub with the receiver. He takes he goes on top of the route, and tries to undercut it, and it was too late, and Ross runs by him and runs up the field for about 45 yards. But in any event, he doesn't drive on routes fast enough for me. And I don't think he possesses the ability to do that. I just think he's a guy that is solid, and that's why I think a lot of people think he's going to move to safety. And finally, he's not a playmaker. I watched him in about 4 different games, and I never felt like he was going to make a play on the football. He had 2 career interceptions in his 2 years at Oregon State, and they came in the same game versus like Idaho State, some random off the schedule, easy, non-schedule, easy opponent that you're supposed to pounce on, which they did. I don't see him as a game changer at all in any capacity. And so in the 5th round, 169th overall selection, Oregon State defensive back Tristan Deku for me is a double. There is some kind of value here. Whether you move him to safety, you keep him at corner, there's some value here. I want to see what the Texans do with him if he is, in fact, on their roster. I suspect that they're going to move him to safety. It makes a lot of sense. And finally, 7th round, 243rd pick overall, Baylor offensive lineman Kyle Fuller is the selection. 6'5", 307 pounds, size and length, 6'5", 307, huge for the center position, 34-inch arms, good length for the position as well. Quick snap to set, does a really good job of snapping the football, getting into his position, anchoring when needed, and also can get up the field. Not a great athlete, but does snap the football and get ready to block. Anchors well. Wasn't asked to do much at Baylor in terms of pass protecting. They usually got rid of the football pretty quickly, but he did anchor down well when called upon in the interior of that offensive line. 39 straight starts. So there is some durability there with Kyle Fuller. That's all I got for you on the positive side. You go to his cons, severely lacking athleticism. There are too many times where I saw guys run by him or him run out in space, and he has no redirect whatsoever, which takes me to my next con. Takes poor angles with no redirect. Once he's going in one direction, that is it. Don't ask him to stop, plant, turn, push a guy around, nothing like that. He can't move that well out in space. I saw guys running by him going in the opposite direction, like, hey, where you going? And then just reach out and just straight hog tie guys. Like, just literally just plain as day. I don't know how he was not called for holding more than he was, because he was just straight, no, you don't, grabbing guys, hog tying them. Again, I don't see him being a good center in that regard. I like my centers to be not as big. I'm not a 6'5" center guy. I like my centers right around 6'3", 6'4" at max. I don't want a 6'5", 6'6" center, but those are in the league. They do exist, but I want my center to be athletic. I like my center to be able to move, to get out, to get to that that double team, and then get off that block and get to the second level. I'm not asking Kyle Fuller to do that because he's not capable of doing that on a consistent basis. And then he played in Baylor's offense. And I hate to beat a dead horse. I hate Baylor's offense because nothing good comes of Baylor's offense, okay? The receivers don't run the complete route tree. They come in and they're usually run trick ponies like you saw with Corey Coleman last year. The quarterbacks are not fully functional, and most of the time they're quarterback illiterate when they come into the league. They don't know how to read defenses. They didn't run a pro-style offense. They don't have verbiage down packed. They can't call the play. The offensive line isn't asked to do things that you do in a normal NFL structured offense. It's just, and he was hidden. He was able to hide in that Baylor offense because everything was so quick, and he wasn't asked to do the things that you would ask an NFL center to do. I just feel like this guy he's not that good. And I would have preferred you to spend your 7th round pick on somebody else, another position that you may have needed help at. I would have rather you taken, you can never have enough linebackers. I would have rather you taken another linebacker. I would have rather you taken another corner or a safety or a receiver or whatever. Anything but this guy. This is one of those guys that if you like him that much, you take him as a undrafted free agent. You make him a priority. You go get him after the draft is done. I haven't done this all draft process long, but here's the first one. In the 7th round, 243rd overall pick, Bear offensive lineman Kyle Fuller for me is a single. Okay, I haven't hit a single all draft because most guys have had value. I don't see the value here. Now, he may very well not only make your roster because you had a key injury at the center position last year. He may not only get onto your roster, he may actually start for you at some point. And that's totally fine. I just don't like him. I don't like his game. I don't like what he brings to the table. I'm not a Kyle Fuller fan, and I don't see the value here in the 7th round that you may have been able to get from another pick. But I guess this is where you take a guy like this in the 7th round. You just take a flyer on him and say, what the hell? Why not? I mean, that's how I felt on film watching him. I guess, okay, why the hell not? But in any event, that's going to wrap up the Texans draft. It started out like game busters. Love what they did early in the draft, and then I thought they started doing some things that I didn't necessarily agree with as the draft progressed. But nonetheless, you get a home run in the 1st round. You get back-to-back triples. Then you get a few doubles, and then you round out the draft with a single. So you get a home run, 2 triples, you get 3 doubles, which nets you a doubles bonus, and then you finish up with a single. You tally that up, 19 altogether. You divide by 7 the number of picks made by the Texans, and you get a 2.71 double. It wasn't an overwhelming draft, but if you're talking about getting players that are going to affect this team in their rookie season, I think you're talking about those first 3 picks, and possibly a guy like Carlos Watkins coming in as a situational pass rusher may be able to help you on the interior of that defensive line as well. So you got some guys that can help you, but none bigger than your first pick in this draft at the quarterback position, Deshaun Watson. That was a necessity. Love that selection. We'll see how that goes for you as we watch this Texans team try to get over the hump with better play from the quarterback position. That's the Texans in their 2017 NFL Draft wrap-up. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we covered all here on the Louie T Network. Come back and join me because I got many more breakdowns to come. I just got one question for you. Who's next?